Football fans, Gooners, welcome to another weekend edition of the Positively Uncensored Arsenal podcast. This is your host, Shotta, and I have the pleasure of bringing back from the dead because I haven't seen him in ages, the one and only Tim Head. Heady, how you doing, my friend?
Very well, Shotta. Very good to see you. Hello, Ehab, and
Hello.
nice to be back. Nice to be
Yes, Ehab is a regular.
back. Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, in his young days he was a scout. Now he's
I'm almost retired.
He's a refugee from Ukraine in Canada. You have lived such a colorful life. It's so good to see you.
Thanks, man. Hi, guys. Hi, Tim.
Yes. Tim, just to remind people, you're an old cricket pro. Played for Sussex, I think.
That's correct. Back in the 1970s, sort of just about when they invented cricket, I think.
Practically, yes.
Yeah.
Well, you have some claim. You have some claim to being a professional sportsman. You didn't play for free, I'm sure.
No, that's correct. I played as a professional for 7 years, and so although it's a very different game to football, I think that many of the goings on behind the scenes are possibly not that much different.
Right, and on that note, I wanted to share my theme with you today. We had an early Christmas in Germany as Arsenal defeat Nurnberg. I understand it's the same Nuremberg where we had the trials, but I didn't dig too deep. I was I almost spelt it Nuremberg, but I decided to stick with the club name. But what struck me, Ehab, Tim, I'm sorry, as a pro, the excitement, the unwrapping of the brand new signing, as you as a pro, after just 2 weeks training, apparently, what you thought of this match and the brouhaha, literally, after us winning it?
Well, it was a really interesting game to watch. I saw all but the first 10 minutes of the game, and we were pretty average in the first half. It seemed horribly familiar. Now we need to remember, of course, that this was a pre-season friendly, that we had a very young side out, certainly in the first half. None of the new signings were on show in that first half, but we played poorly. We had no control in the middle of the field, and it was all rather sort of aimless. We looked behind the pace throughout, and it came as no great surprise to see us go down 2-0 at half time. And bearing in mind that, yes, it was a friendly and all the rest of it, and we shouldn't read too much into anything, but there was this sort of great sense of familiarity about the sort of legginess of the performance and the aimless nature of it. It reminded me a little bit of the first half of the game against Brighton towards the end of last season at the Emirates, where playing without Xhaka, playing without Partey, we tried to play without a midfield at all, and it just didn't really seem to work. And then
You went to that game, didn't you? I think you said somewhere that
Yes,
you went to that game.
Yes, no, I did, and it was a game that got a lot better when Arteta moved Xhaka back into the middle of the field to partner Lokonga, and things went a lot better. But it strikes me that Lokonga is not able to run the midfield on his own. Although I do think he's probably quite an exciting prospect for the future. But what was extraordinary about the game was the total transformation at half time. We brought on 3 players at half time. We brought on El Neni, we brought on Martinelli, and we brought on Gabriel Jesus. And right from the start of the second half, there was an injection of pace and control. And the first person responsible for injecting that pace was Jesus, who started a move and then finished it. And I think by anybody's standards, to score a debut goal in the first 90 seconds in an Arsenal shirt was a spectacular start. But what was really noticeable to me was the effect that he had on Nketiah, who in the first half had been ploughing a little bit of a lone furrow without much in the way of support. And suddenly there seemed to be a dynamic relationship between those two. Martinelli injected a lot of pace down the left-hand side and played in the sort of typically all-action way. But the person who most impressed me was Elneny, and the effect that he had on the patterns of play in the second half was remarkable. He's such a busy player. He's always there looking for the ball, doesn't necessarily do anything spectacular, although, of course, in this particular game, he scored the most spectacular goal, one that is unlikely to ever better. And I would urge anybody who hasn't seen it to go onto the official website and look at the highlights, because it really is a spectacular goal. And his little sort of promptings and the cohesive nature of his play just unlocked the whole thing. Jesus was utterly dynamic, quick feet, quick movement, quick ideas, and he seemed to instill the whole side with a great deal of purpose and inspiration and confidence. And from 2-0 down, we were suddenly 4-2 up in the space of no time at all. Now, it's obviously unwise to get carried away because we were playing a second division opponent in a pre-season friendly. But the urgency and joy, I would say, that Jesus brought to the attack was really quite exciting to watch. And Sterner tests awake, but he certainly seems to be a player who seems prepared to make things happen and to go looking for the ball. So in the end, it was a very satisfactory second half. One player I'd also like to mention who came on probably with about 15 minutes or so to go was the youngster Charlie Patino. And he's a very neat player. It seems somehow fitting to me that just as sadly Jack Wilshere was announcing his retirement from playing football, that suddenly we had a young left-footed midfielder coming on and playing as if he'd been playing for absolutely years. And I think he's a really interesting prospect. And I hope he gets looked after because there's something about him. You know that sense you get with a player when you think that there's something there, some little sort of star quality, and he looks absolutely at home. And I remember that when he made his debut back last season, him scoring a goal in a way that sort of somehow seemed to suggest that he felt that this was the right place for him to be playing. So I came away from the game feeling excited to have watched a turnaround and feeling slightly more hopeful about the prospects of the coming season.
Well, it's good to hear you your measured enthusiasm, if I would put it that way, and that's why we really need a voice like yours. But Ehab, we've been down this road before. I remember when we bought Lucas Podolski. He, if you recall, I mean, I think he hammered. I can't remember, but vaguely. But the preseason, he hammered one in, and we were like, we have a striker. I don't know if I have it right, but I remember all the. He reminds this. Jesus reminds me of Lucas Podolski signing. Everybody was like, we stole one from FC Cole, and this guy is going to hammer in 30 goals. So being on, and everybody's gonna say you're a killjoy, but preseason you get all your nice goodies. My concern is don't get carried away. You have been there. What is your thoughts on this?
Yeah, that's exactly it, Shotta. I can't build anything on it. But the thing is, like Tim said, there are some positive notes.
Mm-hmm.
I like how skilled this team is.
Mm-hmm.
I saw all the highlight videos that I can, but it's mostly repeated stuff. I could piece a couple of things together, which is how we changed the tactics in the second half. How much of an effect was Gabriel Jesus or Jesus? Uh, we have a very skilled team, like the wingers, and they have Eddie. His use is that he's a finisher. He's a high work rate finisher. If you pay any attention to the skilled players around him, he's gonna punish you. So
And
I
he was a setup man for those two of the goals, by the way.
yeah, yeah.
Eddie. Yeah, go ahead.
I've seen the goals. I like Eddie. I've always liked Eddie. I liked Eddie since he came from Chelsea, and I think he's just caught up in the wrong time, because if you remember, I think the last year of Eddie, last year of Wenger, he started bringing Eddie on, and he was really good, and then he loaned him to Bielsa at Leeds. So there's a future there, and Bielsa was always talking positive things about him. Had nothing for but praise for him. So when you're on the radar of Wenger and Bielsa, and then Emre, and now Arteta, it means that those people who are around you just see something in you. And I don't know if we've had this kind of skill up front, but it's players who require a lot of attention. If you go with Jesus, Martinelli, we didn't see him, Saka, ESR, Odegaard. Once you see him, those players are really, really skilled on the attack, and they are going to require a lot of attention. They can offer a lot uh, of individual solutions, and I think I like the team. I like how talented the team is. I think once Arteta figures how to, like Tim said, when Wenger came, he had those inverted triangles all across. And once Arteta figures these things out, how to get everybody close, how to have other players close to the ball, this team is going to be scary. He needs the skilled players today, because he cannot yet do it yet. Players have to manage on their own. They have to find their own solutions. So I think those players like Gabriel, and Jesus, and Martinelli, and Saka, and Odegaard, and this guy we bought, Vieira, and Petino too, are really highly skilled players. As for Petino, I really like the guy. I think he's growing physically now, and he's understanding the game a little bit better. Once he completes his physical transformation a little bit, once he bulks up, um, once he gets like he can deal with bigger defenders and stronger defenders, he's going to be a big effect. A little difference between him and Jack Wilshere. Well, Jack Wilshere was already built with a low center of gravity when he came in. This kid has the same skill level, has the same potential. I hope he doesn't have to suffer with injuries, and he just, all he has to do is just bulk up a little bit, get a little bit stronger, see how that's gonna affect his speed, how is it gonna affect his movement, and adjust to it. And he could easily be a midfield star. I think he's closer, a little bit closer to Ramsey than Wilshere, but the left foot thing is what makes them comparable to Wilshere. Um, I like the team. I'm actually optimistic, but it's just a preseason friendly. We have to wait and see. Even Arteta, when they asked him after the game, I've seen the press conference, he said that we're still waiting for the other players to come. We're still waiting for the players who are like fringe players who we don't know if we're gonna play or not in the future to take this opportunity and play and try to secure their position in the team. So there's gonna be a lot of changes, especially the first half team where we had Bayern as captain and we had Ainsley Maitland-Niles and we had those players that I don't know if they're gonna be with us or not. So
Well, that's
um,
highly.
yeah, the team is gonna change a little bit. It's the first game. Everybody's just trying to run. Everybody's just trying to get back in shape, and it will. I like the positivity. We need it. We do need this team. We need some confidence. I hope it carries away through the first weeks of the season. We cannot afford another season like last season when we were 1 point with 4 games played and 10 goals conceded. So those points count towards the end. We didn't make top four by 1 point. So this is really important to start grabbing as many points as we can since day one. I hope this carries. I hope this carries away. I hope all the players are back and fit.
Tim, as a pro, what when you came through that first game, and I know it's a different sport altogether, do the players take a first game seriously? I'm no, I mean, the little cricket that I was exposed to before a competition, you played a little team to show to be quite clear about your first 11 and who were your backups. Well, that's not many years ago. And I mean, it's practically the same in football, I would think. But how does a
Well, I think it's
big player? How does a big player feel coming into a new team and having his first game? Obviously, you played with some very big players in your time.
yeah. I think that different different players approach it differently, of course. But I think anybody making their debut, whether it's the first friendly of the season or the first actual proper fixture, will always be slightly anxious to show people how good they are. And I think one thing I've noticed about sport over the years is there are some players who make the transition to a higher level or to a new team, take it absolutely within their stride. The moment they're on the pitch, they have that sense of this is where I belong. And I think the thing that disappointed me a little bit about the game on Friday was that there were a variety of players playing. There were, as you say, some fringe players who we don't know whether their future lies with the club or elsewhere. There I would have thought, been one or two players who might have been thinking, this is a great opportunity to show what I can do, to make a point about my suitability for the side. And I thought that one or two players stepped forward, and I thought one or two rather did remarkably little to advertise their credentials.
Such as?
Well, I was, I don't really want to pick out individuals. That's not fair.
I'm afraid you were going to give me that answer. Go ahead.
Well, I think it's unfair to pick on players.
Yeah.
But I will offer one little thing, at the risk of sort of opening old wounds. I remember, is it Emi Martinez, the goalkeeper?
Yes.
He came on to the field again. I think it was against Brighton at the Amex 2 or 3 seasons ago. I think he was replacing Leno, who had been injured.
Yes.
And almost within sort of 20 seconds of him coming onto the pitch, he had a really hard shot to save, which came through a sea of players. You can't have seen it very early at all, and he made a really solid save. The ball didn't bounce away; it was just
Yes.
there, and it was a great moment. And from that moment on, and for the rest of the season, you felt that he knew that this is where he should have been. Markedly
Tim,
different
Tim,
from the way he played when he was in goal in the extraordinary 7-5 win against Reading in the League Cup a few years ago. But
Tim, Tim.
I'm just going to say one
Just
more
a
thing.
moment. Just a moment, Tim. I got to tell you that um, many of us should remember that moment. We're conveniently forgotten, but that is when Martinez made a statement because we were fearful. Because as you know, yes, as you just said, he let in 5 against Reading.
Yeah.
And we were saying this guy had been on loan for years. So I think you make a very good point, and I had to interrupt you because we're saying, hey, through a sea of legs, and this guy not just stopped the ball, but it didn't bounce for any attacker to just tuck it in. Go ahead, my friend.
But I thought in stark contrast rather was the first goal that our new goalkeeper Matty Turner conceded, and it doesn't make for pretty viewing. He will have been annoyed to have let it in, and I thought that there was a case where I felt, oh, now I'm not sure all of a sudden, and I don't think you could blame him for the second goal. But again, as the first half went on with the ball at his feet, he didn't really convince either. And he gave me an impression of playing with a degree of nerves, something I'm afraid to say from my own personal experience, I found remarkably familiar. And I thought,
Yes.
oh gosh, I wonder if playing for Arsenal is too big a leap for you.
Yes.
And so I would have real reservations about him because he just didn't fill me with that sense of this is where I belong.
But that is, and I'm going to switch to Ehab. This is my fear because that is why I suspect Wenger used to keep those preseason games as behind doors before the club commercial department pressured him to have these games, as many of these games, as open as ever, and the training camp as open as ever. Because sometimes, a player needs to be gradually transitioned because I don't know much about Matty Turner, but coming to a big club like Arsenal, it's a big transition. And yes, that first goal, I'm glad Tim brought it out. I was like, come on, that deserved to be saved. What do you think, Ehab?
Yeah, actually, he didn't. He has, as Tim explained it, he was nervous. He was totally nervous. I've seen, a little bit of the highlights, but the guy is edgy. He had like he's still getting used to this. It's like, and I understand this. I spoke to the first time the U.S. made it to the World Cup. A few years later, I spoke to Alexi Lalas, who's used to play for the US. He's a defender,
He played a
and
long time. He would played a long time. Yeah, go ahead.
and I don't like his views of the game, but the guy is, and this is what he says. He says, um, we first game we played was against Italy, and Italy had Nesta and Maldini and Vieri and all these kind of players. And he said the first thing we noticed is those players look like football players. We don't. And because Lalas is a big guy, he's not a small guy. He's tall, he's well built, but he says they look like football players. If you want to draw a football player, you would draw Maldini or you would draw, any of those guys in 1994. And Baggio or all this kind of thing. They are professionals. They used to all these kind of things, and to move from the the MLS and the American team to a team where you see somebody like Charlie Patino, who's 18 now, I think. And at the end of the bench, and he only plays in the preseason games, and you see that he has as much skill as anybody in the Major League Soccer. All the same goes for Reese Nelson, for example, who can't make the team today, and you know he's got the speed and he got everything, and you think, okay, I can't play with those guys. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of there's a lot of players, professional players that been through this
Mhm.
the first time, and they turned out to be great. But as I said, you know, Martinez had a preparation. He was in the Premier League. The transfer is amazing. Like I hear it a lot from players who play in the NCAA and they move to the NBA or in NFL in the US. Uh, the transformation is scary. It is scary, and especially in football, in the NFL, in American football, because everything moves so much faster. And if you speak to anybody who just entered the NFL, this is what they're gonna tell you. They're gonna tell you it's like, you know, pressing the fast forward button in a video. You just watch and you cannot react in time. Everything is much faster, and everything is just happening too fast. A split second is a difference. While in college, it's a little bit different. Remember also. Who's the player? All this time. I'm trying to remember the player's name. He's a shooting guard who played in the NBA. Anyway, he says the first game he ever plays was against the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan, and he says first play of the game, we go down, we score. Michael Jordan comes back. He scores a layup. We inbound the pass. He steals it and he dunks above our center. And he says, I looked around and I said, I can't play in this league. And this is the first thing he thought about. So those are the thoughts going through Matt Turner's head probably. Yeah, it's gonna take him time. Martinez, what people don't remember about him, he had the Reading 5 goal thing, but the
Mhm.
thing is, there was, because you know, as unlucky as Wenger was, there was a period of time when Peter Cech was injured and Ospina was injured, and we played Martinez for about 10 games, where he kept like 7 clean sheets and he conceded 4 goals and against somebody, and so he's been through this. He's been run through the mill. He's gone through the ups and downs and all these kind of things. He showed signs in this run, in this 10 game run where everybody was injured. He showed a lot of signs, and people were talking about, you know, should we stick with him and develop him, or should we bring somebody, you know, our goalkeepers back? And then Ospina came back and he started playing. And I think we had like 6 months of unbeaten run, 5 months of unbeaten
Yes,
run.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah,
Well,
so
remember we went on a big long unbeaten run in the Premier League under Ospina. But hey, listen, that is history. Tim, I'm glad you mentioned Charlie Patino, who, as I said, I didn't watch a game in its entirety, so I didn't see him play. But when you started speaking about him and Ehab started speaking about him, I'm wondering if these players are going to get a chance, because we went and paid 30 odd million bucks for Vieira, who, by the way, looks like a lightweight. I mean, he, I haven't seen him play, so let's be clear. Nobody who's bigging him up knows how he played. But how much of these young players? We start with the Royal Walters. He was quick. He gave that guy do that big old smack and put him down. I mean, and he's 17-year-old, and I was like, how many of these guys are going to really get a chance? And let us not fool ourselves. Even on the Wenger's team, I mean, how many Ramses, how many Wilshires made it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So how
well,
many do you
well,
really believe these guys will make it, Tim?
well, I think that the point that Ehab made earlier on is the one to keep hold of. And he talked about Patino still needing to make a significant sort of physical development. And there are very few 17 or 18-year-olds who are physically capable of making the transformation to Premier League or Europa League, uh, Champions League, that sort of level. So I think that there's a lot of work for those players to do. Um, I think that the importance of the loan system can never be or should never be understated. I think it's very vital that, let's say, a player like Patino, who will have enjoyed a fairly sort of cosseted career so far at
Yeah.
our school, with people sort of looking after him and playing on nice pitches and learning to play in the Arsenal way. But he goes away on loan to a lower league club, and he's sort of suddenly perhaps having to sort of clean his own boots or what have you. He's got to learn to play in unfamiliar situations. He's got to play where it's quite physical, and those are all part of the learning processes. And I think that we sometimes are too ready to give up on players who've been sent out on loan, because I would say that the club under, well, as you know, I'm a bigger fan of Arteta than many of the other people on this side. But I
Right.
think also a person who I admire greatly is Mertesacker, who I think is an important person in the background bringing these young players through. And I'm certain that for a player like Patino, they've got a very clear sort of program that involves physical improvement, that involves making sure he gets properly educated as well, making sure that he goes off to play with a loan club where perhaps it's not going to be totally easy and straightforward, so that he can learn and make mistakes in those sort of environments. You're absolutely right, Shotta. If you get two players every 3 seasons emerging from your academy, you've probably done well. Um, it's terrifying the standard required to play in the Premier League,
Right.
and so it's not going to happen very often. But of course, many of these players will go on to have successful careers with different clubs, or overseas, or what have you. So, yeah, it's lovely to see a sort of a colony youngster come through, but I think we always have to sort of be realistic in our hopes.
Yeah. You know what, Tim, though? And I'm going to give Ehab the last dibs at it. But what worries me is that the club is going to pay priority to the brand new player, the Christmas gift that is going to offer the fans. The fans, I'm gonna be blunt here, and this is not just Arsenal fans. We're like Pavlov's dogs when it comes to signings. We're all dribbling, we're all enthused. We think it's and all the players like Charlie Patino, who's been around. Remember all that talk last year, Charlie, 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 and it's
Yes.
just died. And Ehab, Vieira is going to perhaps get more. We don't pay $33 million for a player to send him out on loan.
Yeah.
Charlie Patino is going to be sent on loan. Who else do you think is going? Because this is the reality.
Yeah. I think I don't see the players, most of the players who started in the first half playing for the club, like Hector and Ainsley Maitland-Niles and Reece Nelson. I don't think we want them. I don't think the team wants them. You know what I think about this. I think it's a huge mistake. I think I'm a fan of. I like Arteta too. The people think that I hate him, but I don't. I don't hate him. I just need people to acknowledge that he's and you think this is a logical thing that somebody who comes with zero experience is going to need time to learn, and you say this and people lose their minds. But the fact is, I'm a fan of Arteta. I'm a fan of Arteta because he played for the club. He was the captain. uh he sat with Moyes, Wenger, and Pep. So if you want to draw a path to a really great coaching career, this is how it should go. I mean, he went through three of the best managers in Premier League history, and he has the tactical savvy. He has the players believe in what he says. He's close to the players, and um, you know the thing is that, like what we talked about Turner, is this is when he started. This is bigger than him, and we should just give him time from day one and realize that this is not going to happen overnight. And I admire the club for sticking with him, because we had two options and we've been going with the wrong option for far too long, which is replacing managers every couple of years, every 18 months, and everybody comes in and they buy players, they sell players, they buy players, they sell players, and in 10 years you look like Manchester United today. Expensive players that don't fit with each other, that taking high salaries, and you don't have a game plan, and you're just firing managers come and go left and right. And this is option one. Option two is to identify your manager, stick with him until things work out. Let him uh, try to just be. I mean, if we got an experienced guy, I have no problem with him. Giving him all this money and trying to take over the team. But in Arteta's case, we should have just thought, okay, we should wait. And I don't think the results would have been much different if we just used our own players and improved them and developed them. And because we have great. We have great youth clubs, great youth teams, and this is my issue. I heard Arteta speak, and people asked him, "Is this the team that you want? Is it close to the team that you like?" And he says, "I think we're pretty close. Just when the players come back, we still in the transfer market." And the thing is, I heard a week earlier, I heard Eddie Howe speaking about transfers, and they asked him, "Is this the similar question? Is the team where you think it is?" And he says, "Well, the management has been absolutely generous with us. The team is. I think our team is always ready to compete. I have trust in the players that we have, and." And we just have to do our jobs now, and because the management has backed us 100%. And this is the kind of mentality I like. I like Eddie Howe. I've always liked Eddie Howe. But this is the kind of mentality that I like. I like to think that this is what we have to do with, because this is life. You play the cards that you've been dealt, and you're not dealt bad cards. You're dealt great players and youth players and a great system and a great team. So this is how we have to move forward, and I hope we keep developing these players. I think Charlie Patino has to go on loan twice and not once. He has to go, because if you throw him in EFL right now, he's gonna come back with an injury. What you have to do, you have to send him somewhere where he works on his body while playing actual football, like Germany or anybody of this, and then you throw him in Charlton or Nottingham Forest, where the EFL is a second division, is a really physical league. It's more physical than the Premier League, believe it or not, because they don't get the superstar calls, and they don't they're not as skilled, they're not as gifted. The but just look at a team like Stoke. Stoke went two divisions down with basically the same team that used to terrify the Premier League. So there's not a big gap between those teams, between the divisions. And I think once he goes and develops a little bit technically, and works on his body, bugs up, adjusts, and then we throw him the year after or 6 months after, you throw him into the second division, he's gonna come back as a really promising player. I think
So
the
yeah, I'm going to interrupt you here. Is that but what I'm getting from you is that you're expecting the likes of Charlie Patino Ruel Walters, I think is his name,
Yeah,
um, to be sent on loan. Those players don't know. You expect the likes of Amen, Reese Nelson. They're gone. They're going to be sold. I think that's where you are.
Yeah,
Tim, agreed.
Yeah, the only slight disagreement I might have with Charlie Patino is I think it's possible that he might stay with the club until Christmas time and have the opportunity of playing in some of those Europa League fixtures, which I think would be good experience for him. And then he could maybe sort of find a loan in the second half of the season where he would be less likely to be finding first team opportunities with Arsenal. I think that, as you say about Reece Nelson, I think he's had the opportunities to show that he's an Arsenal first team player. He's obviously a very fine player, but I don't think he's quite of the quality that the club needs. And he would be a player I think who looked very, very promising at one stage, but hasn't quite made the progress that perhaps everybody was hoping for. But I'm sure he will go and have a very successful career elsewhere. Maitland-Niles, I find a total enigma, to be honest. I've seldom seen a player with more natural ability, but in a very sort of kind of old-fashioned way. I find myself watching him thinking, why don't you just run a little bit faster? Why don't you try just a little bit harder? Because I always get the sense that he's playing within himself. That's part of his style, of course, but he's not a player that makes as many things happen as you would perhaps hope a player of his ability might do. So I think that he's likely to be looking to sort of kick on with his career somewhere else. And so there we are. With regard
Tim, there we are.
I've no idea.
There we are indeed. I would like to wrap it up with that. I think we're basically all coming to a consensus. I think as final word, if I may, Arteta did say it. We're going to go for some brand new some more toys, and it's clear and apparent to me that that's a core. I don't think there's any dispute about that. He said it himself. That's where we're going. Guys, thanks a lot again. Until we meet again. Thank you, Tim. Don't take so long. I know we had a little mishap. You should have been on earlier when another podcast. But don't take so long again. Ehab, thanks a lot, my friend. And bye.
Bye now.